Hello. All right. Well, I've been talking at you way too much today, so I wanted to hear back from you folks. It's partly like, how can I personally do my job better, but how can NSF do its job better? And I'd like to frame that in the form of a question about, especially if you haven't submitted before or you've submitted and have not been successful, what have been the greatest challenges, that you feel you face in developing, a strong iTest project? And that could be a whole variety of different things. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I guess for me it's more the development and innovation of different instruments. Earlier I think there was somebody from Stellar showed a repository of a variety of the instruments, comparing them with the project or something. Could you, I guess, comment a little bit more on what type of innovations you're seeing? Or, she showed a slide that said 56% of the iTest proposals are showing mixed assessments, right? Qualitative and quantitative.
Mm-hmm.
What in your experience are you seeing? Are you seeing a big development? Are you seeing a mix that actually captures? What kind of tools do you see are really effective across for iTest?
Well, I think that probably a majority of projects use a mixed methods approach, and of course there are a growing number of instruments that have been validated, that are reliable and valid, have gone through that process, which is very helpful. Of course, you may have to do some additional work on instruments if the way you're using it is departs a great degree of how the instrument was originally developed. Go back to mine now. Let's see if I can figure out how to answer your question. This is more as an answer. Just take this as my own personal take on things, not as any rigorous survey of the field. And this is also probably encompasses the Advancing Informal STEM Learning program with respect to learning outside the classroom. And it looks like there are, of course, projects where the use of a randomized controlled trial is appropriate, but often, especially in an after-school or an informal environment, it's difficult to get a comparison group, that really matches with, the treatment group. And in fact, that was an issue identified in a program evaluation done by SRI, that people would propose, a robust evaluation design, but in many cases they were unable to carry it out because of issues about sampling, or things just didn't pan out exactly as their probably idealized model in the proposal. So I think that suggests that maybe a more flexible strategy that doesn't depend so much on before and after and comparing one group with another, where that is really not possible. I mean, if you have if you're working, let's say, with an after-school network and you've got access to, a large number of students, and it looks like you can compare some sites with others or something like that, you might be able to do that sort of design. But otherwise, it might be better to use a design that, looks for more like emergent patterns, of how youth are, like if it's online, let's say, emergent patterns for how youth are exploring the resources available. And triangulating several different data sources in order to figure out what's going on, as opposed to, a simple before and after. I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but I think developing, I think acknowledging some of the issues in research and then trying to address those in innovative ways, that could be one way your project could be innovative. Yeah.
Has the definition of informal versus formal changed within the last 5 years with NSF?
Well, I think in the past there was more of an idea of trying to define what is informal learning versus formal learning. And if you read the literature, there are definitions that are all over the map, both within the United States, and if you look at how people define informal learning here versus in the UK. In the UK, informal learning is often seen as people who are employed pursuing additional vocational-related training. So there, a lot of the informal learning, that's called informal learning. If you go to developing countries, well, it's often more like apprenticeships where, in a traditional culture, there's no school and no classrooms, but, you may learn to hunt or to weave or to do something like that by doing it alongside someone who knows that, and that's considered informal learning. So there's something similar to those, but they're very different things. So I think now it's more, in the United States, it's more where the activity is taking place. So, there's a classroom, and of course classrooms are typically more structured than after school or museum settings and so forth. Interesting trend. So it's mostly the context, but it appears that some classrooms are moving more towards what you might call informal learning, where where students are flipped classrooms or places where learning is more personalized and where students can make more choices. They may have to complete certain activities, but they may have more choice about how to get there. Or the learning environment itself might be less structured, even if the students have to complete a specific task. And then likewise, a lot of so-called informal learning is becoming more structured as projects attempt to pull together a more comprehensive array of learning opportunities for kids, so that it's not just one after-school program, and then once they're done with that, they're off on their own. It's more like getting kids involved in a whole variety of ways. And there's actually an iTest project that is a good example of that. It's Nicole Pinkert, and it's called Digital. In any event, that project in Chicago area has set up a whole variety of digital learning opportunities for the participants in school, out of school, at night, during the day, on weekends, and so it's all in one place. But some of the activities they do in school, and some they do out of school, and it's sort of integrating really the two environments together. So, are there any challenges let's say as an individual PI or project team member, when you were contemplating your iTest project, that just something you needed and, it was hard to get or hard to figure out? Or within your institutions, do you have access to the support you need within your institutions to develop competitive proposals? Okay. I guess what I'm fishing for here, obviously fishing. You're all here at this workshop, so you must have found, hopefully it's been a good workshop for you. But it seems to me that this sort of thing, I presume, would be helpful to people who haven't pursued NSF funding before, or who haven't been successful. So, what elements of workshops like this do you find most helpful? Yeah. Oh.
I appreciated the fact that this was a relatively small group,
Mm-hmm.
so it was a lot more comfortable to speak up and engage with youth through the course of the event. So that was very useful. And I think that the information that was across the range in terms of things that from people that hadn't done it before and things that felt those of us who needed to improve on what we found done before.
Yeah.
I think the other thing was just a collaboration with Stellar and the highlighting of resources. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're in a certain discipline and you have ideas for programs, filling in those gaps, right? And, being able to come and actually see it come to fruition. So not everybody here is from educational psychology or just one specific discipline, but to actually see the example of different projects and see how Stellar really helps you put that together. I thought that was really fun.
Oh, great.
Any NSF program or any other agencies, they're asking to get some support letters, and actually not really supported commitment letters. What do you mean by commitment? What kind of commitment can you?
Oh, do you want a little more definition of that?
Commitment letters, because when you ask for commitment letter, you cannot ask for some commitments. They are not filling like giving or writing something they might not be able, if the project is not successful or something like that, or they don't have funding or they don't have to sustain, for example, that you are asking.
Well, I think first of all, if let's say a partner organization will get money if the project is funded, I would think they would be willing to write a letter that says, yes, we're willing to participate in the project and will carry out these aspects of the project as part of our involvement. So that would be a letter of commitment. Another type of letter of commitment might be that if you have a project that seeks to involve certain target groups, like a network of after-school programs, let's say, if they're benefiting from the program, if it's funded, you would think you could get a letter from them saying, yes, this looks like a program that would be of great benefit to the students involved in our after-school program, and we're willing to work with you in these 3 centers to recruit 200 students or something like that to be involved. So that's what's meant by a letter of commitment. Well, a letter of support often has just been that some friendly organization will write a letter saying, this program would be of great benefit to our community, like if the mayor of your city writes a letter of support, or some organization that thinks your project is a strong project and well-developed and writes a letter saying, this is one of the best designed projects that I've ever seen, and I wish you success in getting funding. Well, that letter doesn't really add information to your project. We have reviewers that are going to review the merits of the project, so that doesn't help. And they don't have a role in the project, so in a way it's just an extra letter that doesn't add anything to the actual project. So that's where a letter from an organization that doesn't really have, or an individual who doesn't really have any role in the project in any way. That's just a letter that says it's a great project. Like your congressman writes a project saying, this will really benefit the students in my district, and I really hope they get it. That doesn't really add any additional information to the project. So I don't know if that makes it clear. Okay, great. Yes?
So a couple of the things that I loved were sort of context of how the programs fit and the emphasis of each program, because I heard loud and clear that you want to be the right fit for that program, and some of some of those key words don't translate, or I'm not sure. Like for me, I've been successful in a number of other federal grant programs, and just like getting to know the agency and what you're looking for and all that. So I had the either great luck or the great misfortune to get a couple of the first grants that I ever applied for immediately, and then so getting rejected was so I'm grateful to know that I'm not alone, and having that context and having I've participated in a number of the webinars, and those are great, and then meeting people here is great. One thing I'd like to hear more about, I've heard also, our funding's limited, there's other resources. It'd be really interesting for me to know more about maybe how to leverage other resources, or to try to apply for, if there's any place where, I can say apply for X pot of funding and then look to supplement it with that. I don't know, that may be beyond your purview, but...
Well, let me mention a couple places, if that's okay. Some of you, how many of you are familiar with the Advancing Informal STEM Learning Program? Okay, that's a program, an NSF program, and it funds research and development projects outside the classroom, and it has different grant categories ranging from Pathways, which is up to $300K planning grant kind of thing, to a $3 million dissemination, getting the project going to a broader audience. So a number of youth projects have been funded out of that program. The one main thing about it is it's research and development, and the activity has to occur outside the classroom primarily. Okay, so there's one place you can look. Another place is NIH, Science Education Partnership Awards program. That program will fund 5 years, $250,000 a year, and it's a service program. In other words, while NSF is giving heavy emphasis to research and development, that program is to reach students. The projects can reach students, or it can reach the general public. But since you're the iTest crowd, like an after-school program can be in school, out of school, a combination, and it has to focus on something that's associated with biology and health. But some of the projects that have been funded have had an environmental focus, have had a biological focus, not on human biology. So there's a wide range of projects that have been funded, and there's a website. If you Google NIH SEPA, you'll likely find the website, and there are abstracts and other resources from that project, including some evaluation instruments. So that project, research scientists have to have a substantial role in those projects, and the program requires a very robust evaluation strategy. But the point is to serve students, and so the project should have that STEM focus, should have scientists involved, should have a strong evaluation, but they're supposed to reach students. So, and not just to keep doing what you're doing, but many of you may have program structures that could, accommodate, a different STEM focus, let's say. So that would be okay for NIH. The deadline, the next one, is in June 22nd, so it's kind of late to try to do anything about that one right now, but it should come around again in about a year. And there have been a number, but probably 4 or 5 projects that have received both iTest and NIH SEPA funding, so it's not unprecedented. So there's a couple examples of projects that, places you can look for additional funding. You'd have to do something somewhat different, but you could probably build on the work you've done so far. So I actually had a couple more, topics to discuss, not so much questions, but there is a recent program evaluation report that has been completed by SRI, and they identified the research evaluation area as one challenge for iTest projects, and we've discussed that a lot already today. But 2 other areas that were discussed as challenges, that is, areas that were mentioned in proposals, but where the implementation wasn't so effective. And one of those was mentoring. And I wondered if what issues you believe you face in mentoring, or what effective approaches you've found that work in mentoring. I mean, in the typical proposal, someone may say, we're going to have mentors, which means they're going to have maybe an engineer from a local corporation talk to students for an hour or something of that nature. But it's this area of mentoring and role modeling that people discuss in their proposals, but often the background of why they're doing it and how they're going to do it is not very strong, and then implementation ends up not being very robust either. So I just wanted to get your feedback on that issue, like what's needed, what's worked for you. Yeah.
So we have used mentoring in our iTest program, and the mentors that we used were undergraduate students. Mm-hmm. And so before we started the project, we had several meetings with the undergraduate students as to what is expected out of them during the summer camp that we're going to have for the students, and how they're going to interact, what is the objective of the camp. And then these undergraduate students stayed with these high school kids throughout the program, and they were able to relate to them and discuss with them what college is all. Primarily, it was to introduce them to college and what college is all about. So for us, it was pretty successful.
It's kind of the near peer thing. I mean, where they had more in common with students, and so there's been some research in that area that shows that peer tutoring or near peer tutoring and mentoring seems to be effective. So that was. And you prepared the undergraduate students, is that correct?
We prepared them prior to the start of the project. We discussed the project with them exactly as to what it's supposed to be accomplishing, and what we expect these students to be doing with these high school students.
So you didn't just put them in front of a group and like that and expect things to happen.
They were actually familiar with the models we prepared for them.
Mm-hmm.
They saw how we make this model and how what output we want from this.
Mm-hmm.
And so they know, like, for example, the flight simulator, they know what kind of data we are selecting, we are getting from this, and what students are learning from this, and what kind of questions they can get.
Okay. Let me talk about or ask you about a related area. That is, the iTest program is all about career development, and you may know that the funding for iTest comes from a different source than all the other NSF funds. The funds for iTest come from H-1B visa fees. Those are the fees that are paid by companies who believe they need talent from other countries and they can't easily hire people in those fields here. Like IT, for example, being a typical example. And the idea is that, well, why don't we develop more people in the United States that have those skills rather than always bringing people from other countries. So in any event, so that's why the iTest program has a big career focus. But so a lot of projects, well, in many projects there is a career focus is either neglected or it's mentioned in the proposal, but often the implementation is not effective or not very much. So I wondered, again, my question is sort of the same. What effective strategies have you used, if you have, that have you believe effectively engaged students in learning more about STEM-related careers or helping students develop the skills they need? I guess that's the question. And yeah.
Well, I can share a bit about what we've done at a project in Memphis. First, we're struggling with the issue of how to track our students beyond high school. So those that come through the program and that are interested in majoring in engineering, how do we actually verify that they actually enrolled on that campus, and then 2 years down the road they're actually still in that major towards graduation. So we're still having conversations of what is the best mechanism, whether it's a social network aspect or something that we can follow those students along. But prior to, we're also working, some of our work, in addition to the iTest grant, part of a STEM hub that we're operating out of the University of Memphis, that we have a project called STEM Profile, where we're actually identifying different colleagues from different aspects of STEM, some areas, and actually they create a profile page and we actually post it on our website. So we're now developing a wide variety and diverse group of STEM professionals that we can share throughout our region. So these are people that are in our area, different backgrounds, but are working in different aspects of STEMs, and they get exposed to some of the different types of careers. So those are just a couple of things, one, that we're still working on, but then two, what we're also trying to share through our different project activities.
Thank you. Yeah.
So the way we have tried to approach this aspect is that we built into our project talks by different professionals. For example, and I'll take the example of the Macon County School District, which is a rural county over here with limited resources. So, for example, we had a professor come in and talk to them about GIS, which the students had never ever heard of. They feel like GIS, so that really resulted in a lot of interest of the students as to what GIS is all about. So that's how we have we tried to address this aspect of introducing them to careers which they normally would not come across in their schools.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of them.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So, my name is Kimberly, and I work for an organization called Internet. It's a nonprofit that connects college students with professionals that work in the workplace to help them understand career fields and also to help them understand or address some of the issues that they face in terms of their systems. And so, essentially, what we do is we connect one-on-one students with professionals, and then they get a series of topics through time. I think that one of the reasons that we were here today is to look at whether we could
It's kind of an interest. Yeah.
It has an API, and so if you have the right technical capability to be able to get the information, yes. We're working on how we're going to do it for ourselves, so I don't know all the answers yet. I know enough to be dangerous.
Well, that's kind of, I was going to say, that's kind of an interesting idea where you could imagine like a single sign-on kind of thing where you could gather a variety of data on students, handling all the privacy and all those issues, of course. But at the same time, if the student had this is probably kind of utopian, but students perhaps could connect by social networking to peers who are working in some of the same areas. They could connect to undergraduate students. They could find out about information. Push information could be, just like Amazon tells you, you like this and not like this, so it could let you know what resources and maybe programs that you could get involved with if you were interested. Could provide a news feed. There's a whole bunch of things that you could do with that, both to keep students engaged and provide them with an online support system, as well as to find out what's going on and what they're doing, and then it sort of establish, then if you connected that with like a badge thing, you could have they could have like an online resume that I suppose they could give certain places access to it or something like that. You probably thought of a lot of these things already.
Pieces of what you just said, we are in the process of doing for college students. They do have profiles that are only visible to people that they would like to work with them, and then the mentor's profile is only visible to them if they are given that individual as a recommendation. And the difference in, for those of you who've used Mentornet in the past, the difference between the way it used to be and the way it is today, in the past we recommended a mentor to you and that's who you were matched with. Today they actually receive recommendations and the mentee or the protege chooses who they want to invite to work with. And so it really puts them in the driver's seat in terms of what they're interested in doing. So I didn't mean to make it be a sales pitch, but it is something that could be used to support different programs. For the college students, is a service that's free to your students, so they can access it open social network, thanks to LinkedIn. So,
Okay, yeah.
I just wanted to make a comment, and that is that yes, for college students, because they already are looking at careers, and but with school kids, how much they are interested in mentors and organizations.
I would wonder longer term if we could use that near peer connection to be able to not maybe have it be the main, not maybe have it be the career, but the major, because they are at a point of thinking what they're going to do next. I don't know. I hear you.
Well, I'm about talked out today, but I don't know if anybody has any more questions or topics they'd like to bring up. And I don't know if Stellar wants to close out the session with any final remarks, I guess. Or they may, I don't know. Oh yeah, they've got more slides, so.
Oh, no. No more slides. Do you have?
No, I just have.
We can stand together.
We can stand together and wrap up. Should we hold
Okay.
hands? So thank you, everyone. We're wrapping up a little early. I don't know what's going on outside, but maybe that's a good thing. And y'all are used to it, but sounds ominous. Thank you all for this event. We can only plan and sort out logistics and content, but it doesn't really become an event until you're all here and engage. And I hope that you have found some or all of this useful and that you'll continue to be in touch. As we've said multiple times, all the materials from the website, all the materials that have been shared today will become part of an event page on the Stellar site. It may take a week or so, but you'll each receive an email once that's available, along with our contact information. Our external evaluator for Stellar, Karen Garris, is here representing our external evaluator, Goodman Research Group. You'll also each receive a individualized link to an evaluation of this event. As I said when we started this out, this is really our flagship event here at Tuskegee University, and we hope to do this again here and at other locations, so your feedback will really be valuable, what worked, what didn't work, in terms of content, logistics, etc. So I hope you will all take the few minutes that it's going to take for you to complete that evaluation, because it is really useful information. As I've said, as we've said multiple times, feel free to contact us with questions. You all would have received an email from the Stellar email that is monitored by our staff. Several of you would have gotten personal emails from me. Even in the Stellar email, it was probably signed by me, so you have my personal email. Carrie's email is cparker@edc.org. Again, we'll include this in our follow-up emails to you. In addition to this evaluation that you'll receive in the next few days, we're also possibly thinking about a follow-up survey to you maybe in a few months to really see, well, what happened between now and 3 or 4 or 5 months out. Have you really been able to formulate a plan moving forward for a proposal? Presumably there'll be a new solicitation out by then, et cetera. So you can expect to hear from us. Bob may be giving you his contact information, which is, I was about to say, be in touch with your NSF program officers, so we connected telepathically. And thank you all. And I don't know if Carrie has anything else she wants to add. Safe travels to wherever you're going, and thanks again for being a part of this event. So take care, everyone.